Hello and welcome to the Mindful Metal Jacket podcast. I am your host, comedian, host, podcaster, actor, writer, filmmaker, photographer, masseuse, friend, dad, fisherman. I'm not a fisherman. I just saw that whale in the background. It seemed like it'd be fun to say fisherman. I mean, I've fished. That doesn't make me a fisherman. Well, what am I really? I am that. You ever read that book? Great book. What am I really but just mere consciousness? Anyways, happy to have you along for the ride here on the show. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please, if you enjoy the show, keep it going. It's on you to keep this show going. Subscribe, leave a comment, send an email, a tweet, a thing, tell some friends, spread the word around. I enjoy doing it. Many people seem to enjoy it. Many people do not listen to it. So tell some friends to listen. We have a great, sorry about those sirens. Can you hear those? I don't know. I can hear them. I can hear Jimmy. White Man Can't Jump. Great film. Ron Shelton. Also made Bull Durham. Tune in to my other podcast, Joe and Ron on Talk Movies, to hear more about that. Anyways, welcome to Mindful Metal Jacket. How are you doing? Are you being kind to yourself? I currently have COVID-19, that is. And it's a little crummy. It's not horrible. I mean, you hear me. You see me. Am I dying? No. But it's important to remember that it was worse at the beginning. Some people are like, it's a cold. But it wasn't back then in 2019, at least not for the fatsos and the old folks. Anyways, let's stay focused. Today's guest is one of my favorite people in the wide world. Do I say that every week? Not really. Not every week. I say it many weeks, but oftentimes I have good friends on here. And this week is no different. My friend Katie Hannigan is on the podcast. This is her second time around, returning champion. She did it very, very early in the beginning of the show, before there was even video, because every career move and thought I have is incorrect. I thought nobody wants to watch podcasts on video. I did the same with Tuesdays with Stories. Now everybody watches podcasts on videos. Not everybody, but many people. Anyways, it's our second episode. The audio versions should still be up on the feed. That was great. It was a few years ago. She's back. We recorded this at Skankfest, and we had a great time. Special cameo appearance by my friend Mark Normand, who I also have a podcast with called Tuesdays with Stories. I also was reluctant to have that on video, famously. Anyways, Mark pops in at the very end. Katie is great. We were having a great time out there in Skankfest, and we talked a lot of mental health, of course. I can't remember everything we talked about, but we talked about a bunch, and I think it was a really interesting episode. I always love sitting down with Katie. She's hilarious and very insightful, and we had a great conversation. And make sure to check out Katie's podcast with my lovely wife called Lady Journey. You can find it on YouTube and podcast places. It's Sarah and Katie, two of my favorite people, of course. So go check that out and enjoy this episode. And if you're enjoying it, like I said, the best thing you can do, share it. Share it in your stories. Share it on Twitter. Text it to some friends. Tell some people. Leave a review. Subscribe. Wherever you're listening to this, subscribe, leave a comment or a review, and spread that word a little bit. We'll get it up the charts. And thank you for being here. And I appreciate you. And make sure you check out me doing stand-up comedy live. That's my favorite thing to do. And I have the special, of course, Enough for Everybody on YouTube. Keep that thing cooking up the algorithm. The other specials, this year's material. And I can't even remember. I Hate Myself. And that's also the name of the other special. So go check those out. And you can go to punchuplive.com. I implore you, go to punchuplive.com/Joe-list. That's where you can sign up for my email list. I would love it if you did that. And you can buy tickets to upcoming shows, including the DC Improv, November 17th and 18th. Tacoma Comedy Club, January 11th to the 13th. I'm in Poughkeepsie in January as well. I think that's the 20... Let me see if I can do this math. 18th to the 20th? That sounds right. And then, of course, Pittsburgh Improv, March 28th to March 30th. So go do that. Do all those things. That's a lot of favors to ask. But mostly, meditate, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and we'll get through this thing called life. All right. Enjoy this hour or so with Katie Hannigan and myself, and then a little bit of Mark Normand at the very end. Thank you. I love you. Bye. Hey, starting is hard.
I know. Doing anything is hard. I just don't.
Yeah, it's easier to not do things. It's funny to do my mental health mindfulness podcast in front of
Well, this girl clearly needs something. If I could armchair diagnose her, I'm going to say dad left. Okay, that's clear. First
Absolutely.
of all, she probably got an eating disorder. Mm-hmm. And but religious, so that's a coping. She's got a coping mechanism.
That's nice, religious, but on the defense, you know, and some nice cans. I don't want to be judgmental. Maybe natural, maybe not. Maybe she felt like she needed to improve herself. The lips look actually like they've been done as well.
She has some core self-esteem issues.
You know, what you don't see a lot is the tie into the cleavage. That's a rare.
Yeah, it's saying I'm professional, but I'm fun.
That's a rare look. Yeah.
I'm here to work, but I'll play.
So here we are, Skankfest. Well, this is coming to you live. No, so we don't have a two-shot. This is just this is my camera here.
Oh,
is that right?
Okay, well, I'll stop looking into that one.
It's going to look like we're not in the same room, but that's okay.
That's okay.
But we are, folks.
I thank you so much for texting me last night. You really saved my life.
What do you mean?
You know, because I was in the green room and it was rough. You know how it gets rough at festivals sometimes.
Yeah, this is if you've never been to Skankfest, it's the best festival.
It's an amazing festival. It's so fun.
Is this your first Skankfest?
No, I went to the Houston one. Remember we had Papa dues.
That's right. We walked very far to go to a place.
That was scary. The Houston one was scary.
I agree.
The walk to the hotel it felt post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, see, I'm glad you're saying this because I talk about this stuff a lot. People give me a lot of flack. I mean, joking, fun flack. But this is similar here on Fremont Street in Vegas.
I was escorted to the hotel by Mike Racine.
I was escorted by Aaron Berg.
Oh, that's great.
So,
we both had hunks. Walking us back. I would have been fine to walk by myself because it was busy, but there's a lot of, it feels, the vibe is meth. Let's put it in that way.
It's very methy, and I just came from Austin. I was on 6th Street at Joe Rogan's club, which has just a plethora of security. Everyone has guns and they do MMA. Have you been over there yet?
I have not.
It's a wonderful place, but it is heavily armed, and then you leave and you're reminded of why it's heavily armed over there. You're just on your own.
It's scary.
And I physically jog. What I do is I pretend I'm jogging across the street, like I didn't want to wait for the lights. So I'm like, let me run past these guys, and then I just keep right on running to my hotel.
I love that you have a cover. I'm late. I'm running for a meeting.
That's literally what I've done that going from the cellar to the stand too, where I'm like, I'll hang out at the cellar long enough that I'm late for my stand spot so I can jog.
Yeah. It's scary. It is scary over there. Well, I had a little bit of a scary thing yesterday where I kind of had to run. I was trying to get a juice, obviously.
Sure.
And I was kind of walking. A homeless guy was kind of, I don't know if he was homeless, but he seemed like he wasn't doing great. But he was kind of following me, and I ended up trying to go out into traffic. You know, because I thought maybe I could just get across the street, and then the cars were coming, and so that was the juice was not worth it. I did that for a $12 16-ouncer, and it was terrifying.
So did you lose him? though?
I did. Well, then I encountered a bunch of construction workers that were up high that were yelling at me, yelling flattering things like librarian. And so it got worse from there. But finally, I did make it to the safety of the juice parlor.
Well, you know what's funny is when I walk up, Fremont Street's a little bit better than 6th Street, but worse also in its own ways. It's also horrible because it's just music blasting, and I want to get to my point real quick and then come back to Fremont Street. But I run to the hotel, the Golden Nugget, and I feel the relief of making it indoors. And then I look around there and I'm like, oh, I'm no safer here.
Yes, the Golden Nugget is, going into the casino is just terrifying all over again.
It's a shithole.
I was saying this to Mike when we were in Atlantic City recently. It's like I never had been in a casino until I did stand up and worked there, but I had an idea in my mind that a casino was like the height of sophistication of like James Bond and like, oh, dirty martini. And you go and you're like, oh, it's the complete opposite. It is people on their last legs, literally riding a scooter.
It's very bad and it's very gross. And when I walk up Fremont Street here in Vegas, old town Vegas, if you've never been, which is very different than what you're picture. When people picture like the Mirage and Bellagio and stuff, this is like down
Bit of a
the
downgrade,
street.
yeah.
Yeah, but what bums me out, and I'd like to hear how you feel sometimes, because I'm about to have a child, as you know, and I do have a child by the time this is airing, and I get depressed for our society that there are people that think this is like a place to be.
Oh, yes. I find it fascinating. I love the amateur hour. I don't find it depressing.
Okay.
The only time it really kind of bums me is when I go to Indianapolis, and I see it there, because then I feel sad that that's where I came from.
Right.
And, I have like kind of a Midwestern stink on me as I'm going around. And I think that's partly just internalized because people from the East Coast don't like the Midwest and they don't like Indiana. And I want to be proud of my heritage and the fact that I love buffets.
Hey folks, this episode of Mindful Metal Jacket is brought to you by Stand Up Cinema. Man, am I excited about this. World premiere of a new film I'm starring in, along with Tommy Pope. Who doesn't love Tommy Pope? My God, he's hot. Written and directed by my pal, Sam Rubinoff, and photographed by my friend, Lex Adams, who's in the room right now shooting this, goddammit. It is called Civic Duty. I'm looking at this to make sure I get everything, but I know what the hell's going on here. Civic Duty, great night of films. 2023 New York Comedy Festival presents stand-up cinema short films by comics. You're probably thinking one of these movies is probably written and directed by Joe List. No, I didn't get the invite, but my wife did. Sarah Talamash, Graham Kay is out there, Rel Battle. I love those guys and women. And of course, it's going to include the premiere of Civic Duty, starring me and Tommy Pope. This movie, I haven't seen it yet. I can't wait to see it, but I was there. We ruined about 350 takes, dying laughing. It's hilarious. My God, I can't wait to see it. Brilliant script. I really mean that. And you can get your tickets. One night event. It's happening November 9th. The way you can do it is go to standupcinema.eventbrite.com. That's standupcinema.eventbrite.com. And I can't wait. I will be there with bells on. Sarah won't, because I'll have a child. Oh my God. We're going to be there. She's not going to be there. I'm going to be there. Her movie will be there. Sam Rubinoff will be there. Tommy Pope will be there. I think. I don't know. Maybe he won't be. Anyways, you should be there. Thanks for watching, and I will see you at the movies.
But I think I'm just fascinated. I'm just wildly fascinated by the people that are going to Fremont Street and they're going 100%, like zip lining, getting the 3-foot margarita. And I find them comical and interesting, and I love it in a way. They're
all in, yeah. But to me, it's like the music is fucking like louder than whatever you're thinking.
Awful. It's. You think Times Square is bad?
Yes.
Like, this is so much worse than Times Square. It's on a complete other level.
And it's just like people, there's like the Times Square people dressed as Spider-Man or whatever.
The street performers are out of control. Here, I mean, and of course they're out of control in Times Square, but here I love I just saw something really, this was trauma. I'm going to admit it. A woman with her breasts were out. I don't know if there was a face mask or something was going on with the face. An older woman, the breasts were large. They seemed aged. I just
like a steak, like a dry rub.
Yeah, it was. I just feel those are the people that I feel like, oh my God, I hope that you're okay, and I hope that this is not your last resort, that you're trying to get money from people out here on the street, because that's what it seems like.
Well, there's some people that, and I don't want to come off bad here, but there's some people out there, the lady, I don't know what they do exactly. They have like, their butts are out and their tits are out and they have little stars and nipples. Some of them have breasts that, again, I'm not trying to body shame here, but.
No, we would never.
Never. But I'm like, are there people that are like into this breast? Very long, weird, unsettling breasts, just unsettling bosoms.
Yeah.
And they're kind of walking. And I don't know if they're selling a thing or they take photos and get money for a photo.
I think it's they're taking photos and they're getting money. They're kind of looking for like the bachelor parties that are like, oh, look, can't believe what I saw in Vegas. But I've walked past a couple of these girls. In a way, I kind of live in a fantasy world where I'm like, that would have been fun 10 years ago to just like have a dream and work on this, this weird strip and just like be out there with my body, like living my life and, paying my rent with my tits. But, so that's partly where my mind goes. But the other part, I saw a girl like kind of going after a guy, like, why are you looking so grumpy? Hey, come on. And you're like, oh boy, that is hard to respect.
Yeah, there's a lot of that for me. And I'm somebody that I enjoy Vegas. I like playing poker, and here's great because we're all hanging out. But like to me, I like a hike, a real go out in the woods, some trees, a mountain.
Yes.
The idea of walking up a street at 1 a.m. with just like the music, you can't even believe how loud the music is. And just naked people and just crackheads everywhere.
There is some really unsettling mental illness rolling around. I saw a guy with face completely sunburned, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's scary. That's really scary.
So you don't carry that with you of like, God, we're doomed as a society. Do you think of yourself more as an optimist or a pessimist? Do you have hope for the future of our society?
I am an optimist. I am definitely an optimist. Like my natural state, I kind of revert back to like, I feel happy. I feel happy and I love loving life. But I do think that we're clearly in some kind of end of a Roman Empire collapsing. Like I read a great book. Don't read this. Never read this book. For you, I'm saying, because you're about to have a child and, you shouldn't be thinking about this, but it's called The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. It
sounds like I wouldn't be able to understand it just based on the name of the author.
Yeah, she's a science fiction writer, but she's got this book. It's about dystopian future in LA. It's on the verge of apocalypse, and everybody lives in these like compounds. The few people that have homes live in these compounds, and she lives in there. Her father is like the pastor of this religious group that lives in there. But if you go outside of the compound, which they rarely do, it's just everyone is homeless. People are vicious, fighting. And then I won't spoil the book, but what you think happens. So I see us heading towards that, and I don't think it's good. And that's why I freak out about it a lot. I worry about like people our age getting older and like, what are we going to do?
Yeah. So that sounds like you're terrified.
Yeah. But but I'm also happy.
Did you see Beau is Afraid, that movie?
No.
I didn't love it. In fact, I kind of hated it. I feel like they loved it. These folks are not. But the beginning of the movie, the first like 20 minutes, which I was into, is like it's almost like a comedy sketch, like dystopian comedy sketch type of feel. But it's like that, where it's just all homeless, and as soon as you leave, they just start raining blows on you, and it's wild like that. But I do fear that as I'm having a child, like social media, I'm like, I don't know if we can fucking pull back from this, like the conspiracy and the dislike and the lack of attention and thought.
Because I also think that we have a tendency socially, because of like our news and our culture, to go to an extreme, and we almost kind of enjoy thinking like the sky's falling. I think that that's an American cultural thing. I don't think that it will ever get to that point. I think that like probably when we start to run out of fossil fuels, we'll start converting to like more electrical energy, and we'll probably downsize as a society, but I don't think it will ever get to that point.
Well, and AI can really help us. Are you hopeful about AI, or are you terrified?
I don't know. What can they help us do? It's like they can help us tell a story. It's like, can they help us fucking like clean?
I think so, though. I think AI, they'll figure out how to do carbon vacuums, suck that carbon right out of the air and shove it into the Earth's ass or whatever. And I think
homoerotic.
I think like I'm terrified of AI, but then I was driving from New York to Boston, or reverse, Boston to New York a couple weeks ago, and there was 2 different times I put my car in park on the highway because somebody had flipped their car.
My
just
gosh.
a full on just happened, highway shut down, and like I'm taking like an hour and 10 minutes in park, all of us just sitting there at like 10 o'clock at night because somebody had wrecked their car. They had to, clear it. And then like an hour and a half later, 100 miles later, it happened again. Like that we put the car in park again because another one, and you're like, oh, maybe the robots should be driving. But I think maybe AI can help us with, they're going to be able to make crops and do all this work or whatever.
Hopefully. I hope it turns out well. We'll see. Have you heard of the singularity? Do you know about this?
Yes.
I think that, if we can stay away from that, we'll be safe.
Yeah. And I take some hope because I'm a pretty hopeful guy. I can go to dark places. But don't you think you have to have hope, particularly if you're having a child, but if you're living, you plan on living, you have to have some amount of hope. Otherwise, why not just,
I mean, yeah, I have to. If I start to go negative, for me, it's all about just like keeping the positive thought patterns going in my mind. Like I already struggle enough with, I think, like my self-sabotaging behavior of like overthinking, my anxiety, kind of like being emotionally unstable. And then on top of that, it's like we're in a job where we kind of have to push ourselves physically and like stay up late or fly early, So I think if I don't have hope and optimism, then it's like there's nothing.
Yeah, and it becomes harder to create. I mean, I always, it's talked about all the time, but people think of like comedians are these dark souls and have to be like tortured. But I'm like, nobody's funny like that. I have to be feeling pretty good to be funny. Hey, everybody, this episode of Mindful Metal Jacket is brought to you by BetterHelp. This whole show is about therapy, mental health. You know how much it means to me. You know how much it means to the guests. You got to get therapy. You need help, damn it. If you're looking at this show for help, you need more help. You need therapy, and there's never been an easier way to do it with BetterHelp. Can't recommend it enough. Sometimes it can feel like your own brain is getting in the way and self-sabotaging your happiness. Therapy can help you figure out what's holding you back so you can stop working against yourself. Gosh, darn it, I need to do that. My brain is a mess. The only thing that helps me, well, many things help me, but the number one thing that helps me is going to therapy. Alan Lefkowitz, he's my guy. The best way to do it, though, it's so hard to get a therapist now, especially in New York where I am. Just take a quick quiz to get you matched with a licensed therapist at BetterHelp. If you ever need to switch therapists, you can change anytime for no additional charge, no questions asked. You do that by going to BetterHelp's online therapy. It's incredible. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/metal, METAL, metal today. You'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/metal. BetterHelp.com/metal. Do it now. 10% off. That's nice.
Yeah, it's a wild stereotype. And actually the woman who I was telling you about, my new therapist, did say something about that. And I was like, yeah, I don't need to be miserable. I mean, I will say, granted, like if I go through a breakup, I have like a revenge motivation.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think we're breaking up just for that.
Yeah. I would love to get it again. Now I feel so great. I'm in a great relationship. We love movies. We love having a movie. It's like, I got to get some fucking work done. I need to lose weight. But I lost my train of thought.
What were we talking about? Relationships, suffering, feeling good. You want to feel good.
Yeah, you have to feel good. I think you have to feel good to have like the discipline that you need to like write or to like get anything done in your life. If you're like, oh, what's the point? Then it's like, well, why would I wake up early and try to crank out a couple jokes?
Yeah. I mean, I also, you have to, not to always be talking about social media, but do you find it hard to contend with dealing, like looking at the phone and all that shit? Because I'm bad when I'm by myself.
Now, my therapist did help me with this. She said, she was like, it's a very simple matter of if you have self-discipline or if you don't, which it's like, I guess I'm paying hundreds of dollars for somebody to be like, you need to get off your ass. But it's like, right. I've really tried to have self-discipline with the phone, and it is super challenging, but and when I slip up and I, look at it, that's when I get fucked up, because I end up seeing something that, for me, it's often like I'll see somebody that I am like comparing myself to, if it's my career or something, like a friend posting something that like normally I would be happy for, but if I'm in a negative space, I'm triggered. Right. Then I'm like going on a spiral of like comparing myself. I'm not good enough. I'm not working hard. And it's like, I'm going all the way down to the end. Right. So it's like, I have to check in with myself and be like, is it worth it to be sobbing on the floor here? Yeah, that's kind of like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Do you ever do that? I think that's what I'm doing right now. Yeah, that stuff's really helpful. And there's a great book by Seth Gillihan, the book I love. It's called Mindful Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. And it's sort of a combination of mindfulness and CBT.
You got me into Rick Hansen years ago, and I listened to that podcast.
Yes. I do enjoy the mindfulness. I think the combo of the mindfulness and the cognitive behavioral, I think that's where it's at in terms of therapy for me personally.
Same.
I did psychotherapy for years, and it's like, well, I feel like I'm just talking.
Well, that's what I
things
love.
Are getting worse.
I go to Alan as Mike does, and so many comics do. Sarah and I love Alan, and he's the best, and he's changed my life. But after a while, it is just sort of talk therapy, and you kind of go in there, and he's like, "Well, your family hates you." I'm like this. I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it is kind of, and it worked because he kept repeating the same thing until you get it, and then you see it, and you start to see patterns. But sometimes you're like, oh, I need more like behavioral stuff. Like when you do this instead, or think this.
Yeah, it's really hard, I think, when you go to therapy to get what you need, especially when for me, in my case, when it's something as simple as like, you need to have self-discipline and you don't. And instead of me being like, okay, I should develop self-discipline, instead I'm like reading every self-help book that I can find. Now I'm paying for a therapist. Now I'm just like creating this mystery in my life. Like I don't know what's wrong when it's like, I'm still just like scrolling. So it's hard.
Well, that's where the mindfulness is so helpful, and it's hard, but you have to keep going back to it. It's like they say in AA, like a daily reprieve. Like I have to stop my thinking and be like, oh, for this hour, I'm like going over these principles and be like, right, I have to remember that. And I can usually remember it for like 3 hours.
Yes.
And it fades. And that's why people go to meetings every day.
Yeah.
By people, I mean me. But like, and CBT and mindfulness is so helpful with that. Because I do that like last night. I come back from the festival, and it's a lot to be here, particularly if you're not
very overstimulating.
Sober. Now you drink, but not excessively.
Not really, and I haven't been drinking here.
Right.
I feel like I'm kind of almost leaning towards sobriety now because I'm just not getting anything out of it. You know, I like to have like a wine with dinner. Like I don't drink like to party really.
And are you ever a weed person? Were you ever? Are you?
I was. I think I had actually a problem with weed.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't imagine you high.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't smoke with other people. I would smoke like by myself. You know, it would just be like one day a week. That was at like my later phase where I would just be like smoking by myself just to kind of like get over escape my own prison, the prison of my mind.
Yeah, of course. No, I think this has been like for me like a triggering week because I was in Austin doing Comedy Mothership, which by the way is just like there's just high-end alcohol with glasses and ice.
Yeah.
Like it's just help yourself.
Yeah.
And that was like my dream when I was drinking is like, what?
Yeah.
But as my friend said the other day, he's like, that's a formula for me to never get invited back. If you were like, just help yourself. I mean, Joe Rogan would have me in a fucking headlock or whatever. But there was that. And now Skankfest is the same. We're in the green room and it's like, everybody's get as fucked up as you can, mushrooms, weed, everything. And there is that thought of like, boy, I would really like to get fucked up right now
because I have like a social anxiety. So for me, I have a hard time actually getting fucked up with like people that I don't know that well.
Right.
Because then I kind of will fall back into like a bad pattern of like just overthinking my behavior.
Yes.
And now it's to the point where it's like, I guess I just rather be sober and just like riff around with people.
Yeah. That's why that hang last night, the little cigar lounge thing was nice because it's like, okay, here's 7 people I know.
That's my ideal. I like a small group setting. You know, parties for me are tough because it's just too many people.
Right.
But yeah, last night was fun.
Very fun.
We had a great hang.
And I don't know if this is OCD or if I'm autistic or if I have Down syndrome, but if I hear...
Yes. I think it's all 3.
If I hear... if I'm talking to somebody and there's somebody talking across or next to me, my ears automatically go to over here.
Oh yeah, I cannot focus.
And then I'm literally somebody talking to me and I'm like, I'm listening to that. And then I'm picking up on that and I'm getting nothing. And I can see the person's like, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying because I'm listening to them, especially at a comedy festival or a work, whatever you do, if you're at a work thing, because like everybody's talking about somebody you know. Like I'm hearing like, wait, what are you saying about me? You're talking about her?
Right.
And it's very similar. I want a small group, 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, the festival again is so fun, but it's also you are stepping into like a very overstimulating experience, and that can I think it can even just not even being around alcohol, but just like being in Fremont Street, which is like you're in a street that's a movie theater also like. Well, I had mentioned to you I was doing grounding techniques, which I think is
tell me about this.
So I'm working with my new therapist with a book called Seeking Safety, and it is for trauma. And it said that, people who have trauma, they often will like really have a hard time finding like being grounded. And that's why people end up like getting into alcohol or addictive behaviors, because it can kind of like be a numbing technique for you feeling so much.
That's me.
Yeah. So in this book, it was proven through clinical trials that it works. So there's a ton of different grounding techniques. Like you can one I've been doing is like, this is like a yoga thing where you put this like sends all the energy back into your body. This is my one that I've been doing. Another one is like, you can have a stone and keep it in your pocket and you can touch the stone.
It's like a lady journey.
It's totally very lady journey. Yeah. And but I can't carry stones around with me because I was like, I have to travel light. So I cannot be like lugging a crystal orb. Or you can have a mantra. A mantra is another one. Another one is like, you can try to focus on feeling your feet into the ground. Okay. The important thing is you pick one grounding technique. And then when you develop the mindfulness to notice when you're like kind of going off into fear or, spinning out in your mind, you do the grounding.
Right.
And you're like, oh, okay. Yes, I'm grounding myself.
Right.
And I have to say, it's actually been pretty helpful for me.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I have a similar thing with from mindfulness of getting out of, I guess it's the same thing, like kind of getting out of your head of like feeling my feet and feeling myself, my body, like in consciousness, the feeling of you're not feeling a leg or a foot, you're just feeling tingling or warmth or whatever it is. And that really helps me to like remove myself from my body and myself. Yeah. That self-awareness.
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, I feel like I have been doing this 5-minute meditation in the morning. I think it's called like mindfulness app. It's a gong. You touch the gong and then it like plays music for 5 minutes. And I've just been doing it to be like noticing every time I get completely detached from reality in my mind and have a thought that I'm like talking to somebody and then experience it as though it's real. It happens to me all the fucking time. Like I'll just be having an argument in my mind and then I look down at my watch and it's like, it's been an hour.
Right.
Like,
right.
What was that and what happened? So I've been kind of like just trying to bring myself back, just practicing during that 5-minute period and noticing how often it happens. And it's crazy. It's crazy that it's happening so much. So that's been helping me lately too, in combination with the grounding techniques.
Now, do you find you need alone time to do this or can you do it socially? Because I feel like sometimes I need, especially a thing like this where I've been here since 10:30 a.m. and it's 4:26 p.m.
Yeah.
I was at home.
Yeah.
And we'll be here till probably 11 straight through with people. And I'm like, there's a moment when I go to like the bathroom, I'll go in a stall and I feel like completely myself for a second because I have no other thing where you're like, and it's like 10 seconds. I'm like, okay, here I go. Yeah. I have a hard time like grounding or kind of being in the moment when I'm with other people. Not in the moment. I'm in the moment talking to people. But you know what I mean? That feeling of like relief.
Yeah.
Like I need to be when I get back to the hotel, and this is what I was going to say about social media, is sometimes after 12 hours of high stimulus, I get back to my room and I'm like, okay, I can just chill. And then I start looking at Instagram for an hour and I'm like, no, I didn't want to do that. I went back to being fucking assaulted with the senses.
Yeah. I think that, well, first of all, I think alone time is super important. I know it is for me. If I'm not alone enough, I start acting strange. So I have to be really careful to be like, okay. Like last night I was having FOMO. I wanted to go to the strip club with everybody, but I know I just can't stay up that late or I just start acting weird. So It's like, I just went back to the room. I chilled out. I've had some alone time today. I'm feeling so much better.
Oh, good.
I start feeling like, I don't know who I am.
Right.
Who am I? Yeah, it's like whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking. I'm just like laughing at nothing. Like, I don't feel safe. I saw a thing that was really cool. I saw this on TikTok, and I do think I'm going to maybe do a lady journey on this. It was called a menu. It was like a self-care menu where you have different boxes of things that you like that help you unwind. It's like appetizers, meals, sides, and desserts. So an appetizer would be like something that you could do in 10 minutes that helps you unwind, like go for a walk or read like 10 pages of a book or something. Meals were more like take a yoga class or like get a pedicure. Sides were things that you could do while you're doing other things, which I guess would be like sitting on a bouncy ball while you're at a workstation or something.
Okay.
And then desserts were things like scrolling social media that you could do in a small amount, make it in a way that you can use it as a relief. Cause I actually look at TikTok a lot, but I don't follow anyone that I know. So
right.
I don't, there's no risk. Sometimes I get a little triggered if I see like a comedian who, bombing that has 1 million followers. I'm like, okay, everything's fine. But I have like, my algorithm is going to like, I'm getting like money saving tips, then a recipe, then a horrific story of a crime from Sweden, so,
right.
So maybe something like that. You need something like that to decompress your mind.
Well, I do think you need to allow yourself to, because social media is so prevalent and so addictive and we're all have it. You do have to allow yourself time to be like, I do actually enjoy looking at this for a little bit. It's like being mindful of how long.
Yeah.
Because like vegging, and my therapist says this all the time, and they say this in CBT and mindfulness too. It's like, it's okay to do that as long as you're doing it mindfully.
Yeah.
If you're like, I'm going to sit here and look at videos that I enjoy looking at, that's okay. As long as you're not just like, my thumb is just moving involuntarily going through this stuff.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time with that sometimes too, where I'm like, I'm going to watch a movie and then I have the movie on and I'm doing push-ups during the movie and then I'm checking my phone during the movie. And it's like, I'm not really doing anything, which there's many studies now that like there's multitasking doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just half-assing two different things at once.
Yeah. Multitasking is a nightmare.
I mean, other than maybe exercise and listen to a podcast, because one is bottom up and one's top down. I don't know the difference between those two things. I never know.
I'm a bottom up. I think I'm a bottom.
Me too. I'm a power bottom.
I have a thing on my phone. I've set the timer to limit my social media. So
does it work for you?
It works. Like it works in the way that if I'm on TikTok and I'm scrolling, like I woke up early this morning, I wasn't feeling well. So I did a little scroll, but then at 15 minutes, it cuts it off and it's like, you've run out of time. So I have a choice of like, okay, well, I'll do another round or nah, I'm good.
But these are still just tricks. Cause I had that years ago, cause I've always tried to quit my phone and all that bullshit. Not bullshit. 2 episodes with Catherine Price. She's the best. She's amazing. Did you ever read that book? How to break up with your phone?
Oh no. Sounds great.
It's awesome. And I've had her on the podcast. She's delightful. I love her. And the book is great and it's helpful.
Cool.
But then, like we said, you get removed from the book and it starts coming back.
Everything is hard.
But that's right. Including me right now, folks.
And me. Surprise.
I couldn't think of the dick pill. What's the pill that everyone has?
Xanax.
No. Blue Chew. Brought to you by Blue Chew. Anyways, it's not. I shouldn't have said that because we're not getting paid by Blue Chew. But anyways, I had that years ago where I set it to like, you get 2 hours a day on social media and it would pop up like your 2 hours are up. And then I'm like this. Great. And then swipe past it and keep going. Oh. Because you still need the discipline of like, oh, okay, don't forget, don't remember or whatever. Remember you said you weren't going to do this?
I know. It does very quickly just become something that you have to do to get into your phone, which I think is funny. They need to do something that's more like, and now solve a puzzle.
Right.
You should be like when you have to forget your bank password and you have to write in like your mom's maiden name. It should be like, now you have to write in your goals to like remind yourself that you're a piece of shit.
Did you ever hear that Jake Johansson joke about the password questions?
No.
It's such a great joke. He said, you forget your password and they're like, who is your childhood best friend? And he's like, Greg. And they're like, that's incorrect. And he's like, listen, I don't know what was going on between Greg and I the day you asked me, but why don't you just tell me who you think my best friend is and I'll work it out with him. Anyways, it's very funny. So you're doing all these things to,
stay afloat,
not kill ourselves. What do you have like a bottom? Was there a time in your life, an age where you were like, oh my God, my life is in shambles. Mentally, I'm losing my mind. I've lost my mind. This is crazy.
Yes. I mean, my whole 20s was really, really rough. Just moving to New York, my entire 20s was very, very rough. When I moved to New York, I was like binge drinking a lot, which was like terrifying.
Wow.
Binge drinking and trying to have friends, but only going out with people that were drinking. And that was rough. But when I turned 30, I got attacked on the street, which I can't go into the whole thing because I don't want to be like reliving it. But I got attacked on the street when I was like 28 or 29, and it triggered like a ton of trauma that I had from childhood. And so like that was a point where I had just like a year of kind of just like dealing with it. I was just like reeling, and then finally was just like I went through a breakup. That was like terrible. And it wasn't a rock bottom in terms of like, I mean, I had other instances that could have been like rock bottoms for drinking, which I just didn't take the opportunity.
Sure, me too.
But at that point, I was like, I just have to go. And I started going to psychotherapy. And then that's when I was like, oh, I should have done this a really long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny because I've known you a long time, but it's hard for me to picture you like slamming back booze. And were you like wild? Were you like, wow?
Oh yeah. When I drink, I'm like so fun. I'm like the funnest person. Mike actually like encourages me. He's like, you should have a couple drinks. I'm like so fun. I'm like laughing. I'm in the moment. I'm like having great time. But this was in my early 20s. And I think by the time I was doing stand up on the scene, like I would have a couple drinks here and there. But by the time I was doing stand up, I would only get out of control at like a wedding or something.
Right. Now, when did you start doing stand-up?
In 2010. I started in 2010, and that was 2010 was also maybe the year of like the worst binge drinking that I had. Okay. And so then at the end of 2010, as I was starting to get more serious about it, I think it like came up from air and had like periods of sobriety, like long-term periods of sobriety.
I feel like I must have met you shortly after you started doing comedy at like the Creek.
I remember meeting you. I loved you because you were drinking tea, and I was like, love it.
Oh, wow. So was I sober then?
I did not meet you in 2010. I met you more in like 2013. I remember I met you remember there was a weird comedy space that Lucas Kaiser ran that was also a hostel that people were living in. And we would do mics in there, and people would just be like, come out and like use the shower. Oh yeah. Kind of like on the Upper East or something like that. It was in Soho. It was like a weird loft space in Soho. Okay, on Crosby Street, that one? Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, that's where I met you. You were drinking tea, and I felt like that was a green flag because I love tea also. That's funny. I feel like I've known you forever. But then what year did you do Montreal? I didn't do Montreal until 2018. Oh, is that right? But I feel like I recommended you at one point. I think earlier. I think I had been like close to going like a couple years before, so maybe it was like 2016 or 2017. Okay, because I remember recommending, but not really knowing you, and then I saw you at Starbucks across from Stand Up New York. Yeah. Yes. I remember not really knowing you, but being like knowing you a little bit and being like, oh hey. Oh, that was so nice of you. Thank you for doing that. That means so much. Well, I thought you were very funny right away, but maybe you had been doing it like 5 or 6 years at that point. Yeah, I think I had a couple of years there where I was like just doing great, but then nothing was happening for me, and it was really scary. It was so scary. But actually, when I started getting in therapy, which was 2017, that was when things started happening for me in my career, because I was starting to do the work of taking care of myself and not just be like a complete emotional mess. Right. So that's good. Yeah, you got to take care. It's like put your own mask on before helping others, all that shit. Like you got to take care of yourself to have any amount of success in anything. Yeah. I would imagine. Yeah. Now, do you come from, your name's Hannigan. Maybe we talked about this last time. Do you come from a big Irish
kind of family? Because I hear any Irish name, I'm like, you're probably like me, like 17 people, everyone's shotgunning beers and it's wild.
Well, my family, my dad is Irish and my mom has different heritage. I think it's like German, England, maybe like some Swedish. So my mom was never a big drinker. My dad and my parents' friends, like they would all kind of like get drunk. You know, they had like a baby boomer friend crew, which they're still friends with, which I think is really fun. And they have the camper jamboree every summer, and their friends come camp on their property. And they get hammered, which is delightful. But I had just kind of a smaller family. It was just me and my brother. And then my mom's family is a bit small too. So,
but you guys weren't like always together or anything? No,
I think my dad was working a lot, and then my mom was going to nursing school for a long time when I was young. So I had like a lot of like latchkey, like going to the babysitter's house, like that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. It's funny because people always ask, like, do you come from a big family? I'm like, I come from a huge family. Like, wow, how many siblings? And I'm like, well, one.
Yeah.
But my mother has 4 siblings, and then they're all married and they have their kids, and then their kids have friends. And we're a family that just takes in other people, where it's like,
That's
this
nice.
is my high school friend. These are our old church friends. And so there would just always be 20 people, 15, 20 people.
I love that. Yeah.
It was really fun. I mean, it still is fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of problems.
Yeah, of course. Well, I saw the movie.
I made a film about it. Yeah, but it was very similar to that, where there was just always 25 people around. Everyone's drinking and fun. But it was an interesting thing too, because we never had any outside, other than like a person would bring a friend in and they were kind of welcome in. But like we weren't friends with neighbors. My parents didn't have like a group of friends. It was just family.
Okay.
And I feel like I've had that in my life, where it's like, if I know you, it's like we're tight and everything, and you know everything about me. Yeah, let's go crazy. And then a place like here, where you just have random people being like, "Oh," I'm like this,
yeah,
and I think it's like from childhood, where it's like, "Hey, you're not in the group.
Boundaries have been crossed."
Yeah, where are you coming from? I don't know what this is. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but. I guess I was going to ask was like, were you like similar to that? Do you think like when you went to school, were you super social, or you kind of
I
trepidatious?
Think, I was always had a lot of social anxiety as a kid. I had like, I think just from like probably trauma, just was always kind of terrified that something bad was going to happen to me. So I would kind of like externalize it onto other things. Like I was really afraid of like being poisoned, eating meat, like random fears, sleepwalking, killing my family. That was a phase.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I had a hard childhood in that I was kind of anxious constantly, and I didn't, my parents, I love my parents. I'm sure they'll listen to this. They listen to all my stuff.
Oh, wow.
So sorry you fucked me up. No, just kidding. I don't blame them. They had their own stuff going on. And so I think for me, childhood was kind of like hard and terrifying.
Yeah, mine
But they gave me a lot of presents, and I do appreciate that. And I love my parents.
Yeah, I always feel bad when people say their parents listen. I pray that my parents don't listen to this. But yeah, I felt similarly, and it's weird because I'm about to have a kid, but I just felt extremely unsafe.
Yeah.
Anytime I left the house. And I think a lot of that was my family would just talk about anything, which I'm very protective of children still. If somebody's like, did you hear about that car wreck? I'm like, hey, come on. Yeah. Like, 'cause you just hear things as a kid. And I think a lot of times adults don't think about what a kid is hearing.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, so a car can wreck on the highway. Got it. And then we get in the car, and now I'm holding on the thing going, I heard about it. You can't take it back.
Yeah.
Cars wreck all over the place.
No, you have that hilarious joke, which actually made me laugh out loud when I watched it, which is so rare to watch a comedy on like on a screen and be laughing, but about your aunt telling you her worst fear.
Oh, thanks. That's true. Yeah, my Aunt Betty.
So funny. But yeah, I think it's exactly stuff like that where I think people who are in our generation, we have trauma because there weren't boundaries like that. Like I remember watching the Ninja Turtles when I was like 3, and April just gets slapped in the face. He goes, your mouth, shut it. And he slaps her in the face, and you're like, well, maybe that's not appropriate. Right. I don't know if we should be showing that to a 3-year-old child. I think it can come from, any other thing, because you say you have like, oh, I have trauma. It's like, well, were you raped by your grandpa?
Right,
and it's can be more subtle than that.
Yeah, of course. Well, I always talk about this too, or think about it like my father. hit me so hard one time. Like we were in the car driving and he just backhanded me like, and it left like a handprint on my face. And I remember it so well, like having a moment of like not crying, of like confusion, and then looking at him and then just being like, "Bah!" and having a big red fucking hand on my face. And I remember having the thought then, I was like, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7, and thinking like, I wasn't even trying to be annoying or mean.
Yeah.
That was just me.
Yeah.
So it was like me as myself can get hit by the person who loves me the most.
Yeah. It's like you're not safe. You're not safe in the world.
Yeah. So like cut to me walking at Fremont Street, running up the street being like, if my dad's going to hit me in the face, what the fuck is this man, this crackhead going to do to me at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, 100%. I think also when you have stuff like that, if you don't have parents that can like emotionally support you through that and be like, what happened? Like I remember I had a little boy like kick me in the stomach in school, and I told my parents about it, thinking like looking for sympathy, and they were like, well, how could you let that happen to you? Like what, kind of almost like victim blaming me, I guess. And it's stuff like that. You're like, oh, there's no help to be like, oh, how did it make you feel? Like, let's process, let's have like an emotional process. And then it just gets stuck inside of you until you're like 28 and you're attacked on the street, and then everything's like coming out,
Right. No, I have another moment like that I think about, which I was 11 because it was during the 1993 World Series when my uncle and cousin, my uncle's like 4 years older than me, and my cousin and a neighborhood friend, they went to get something at 7-Eleven. They walked, and then they came back and they got jumped like on my street. These guys hid behind bushes.
Oh my God.
Jumped him and attacked him. And they came running in the house, and I was 11 years old watching baseball, and it was this frantic scene. Everyone's like, they got fucking jumped. They're beating up him. Call the cops.
My God.
It was this crazy thing of like, wait, what on my street?
Yeah.
Men hid behind bushes and attacked my family. And it was so traumatic. And then I remember my family kind of being like, shut up, we're dealing with this thing. Like, we can't deal with you right now.
Yeah,
These people have been attacked. You get out of here. Get out of here. And like, I kind of had to quiet, and nobody ever came later and was like, this is rare. Bad things can happen, but they won't happen to, or anything like that. So it was just this feeling, I feel anxious thinking about it. This feeling of like, so someone could attack me at any moment randomly, and they were attacked, and nobody's ever like chilling me out or hugging me or relaxing me. It was just kind of like, just shut up over there. And so it felt like I was annoying, and also I might be struck randomly by a strange person.
I have the exact same thing. And that's what I'm kind of working on in my therapy journey too, is like finding the self-soothing. Like, I don't have a coping mechanism of self-soothing. You know, I think that's why I just do stand-up, because I'm just like addicted to feeling like people like me and okay. And I don't care about fucking fart jokes. What am I doing? But that's why I'm looking for, like doing the grounding, doing like the soothing practices. So I'm not always, like getting in a state of like heightened agitation, and then there's nowhere to go. You're just always there for years and just terrified.
Yeah, no, I have that sometimes when you're out living, you're walking around doing something, and some little thing bothers you to the point where you like feel a fucking rage, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, because you were repressing anger in your childhood. Yeah,
exactly. Like somebody cut in front of me, like walked this way across too close. And I have a thought of like fucking smashing their head into a sidewalk. And I'm like, well, that was weird.
Yeah, I've had the exact same thing. But it's actually, they say it's good. It's good when you have it. Because that means growth. Because previously, I have a really hard time with anger, unless it's towards my boyfriend. I'll
piece
attack.
Of shit, Mike.
No,
Mike Vecchione. We keep saying Mike. We should get clear. The great Mike Vecchione.
He's such a wonderful person, and he has done a ton of work on himself, and I look up to him. He's a great example of like somebody who's just grounded, and always doing the work to discipline and like work through his own issues to be like a grounded, like well person. Wow. I, on the other hand, I have some work to do, but like getting angry, I used to never do it. I would just be like, I'm just not angry. I'm just not an angry person. But it's like, you're just repressing it so much, or like internalizing it, which is so much worse even. Yeah.
I mean, repressed, that's the name. That's the Irish thing.
I will say, I think my family does the repression. I think there's a lot of repression in my family. And that's why there's the drinking. It's like the Irish, they're drinking and punching, whatever. But it's like, that is what it is. It's such a repressed culture. And my mom's background is more British, but it's also, I think, similar in terms of like the repression, where it's just kind of pushing it down until it explodes. And then it's like, well, that was an accident. And now we continue to push it down again.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, which is what the movie's about. My movie, 4th of July, is about that.
Which I was in, but I was cut. But that's okay.
That's right. You had 2 parts.
I had 2 parts.
And they were both cut. And I casted you in both of them, though. I'm throwing you a lot of bones here.
No, I really appreciate it. That was great.
I'm trying anyways. By the way, I've told you this story before, and it's really, it like brings me joy. But I remember Mike Vecchione saying to me at the cellar table, he's like, you know who I'm really into is Katie Hannigan. It was like years before.
Oh, really?
I think I've told you this before.
I did not remember you telling me that.
Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, she's great. And he's like, yeah, that's someone I could really, he was like pining for you. And this is like several years before you started dating. This is like 3 years before you were dating.
He had asked me out through a friend, kind of a friend. And I didn't know who he was. So I felt like I also was not in the place that I could have, I think, dated another comic at the time. So I was like, oh, no, thanks. Like maybe another time. And she kind of just was like, yeah, no, it's a no.
Oh, wow.
And so it put the kibosh, but I'm glad that makes me feel really great.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm here for.
He's such a sweet guy. Love you, sweetie. He's not going to listen to this.
I love the idea of Mike sitting and listening like, but he's great. I got to get him on. Maybe I had him on before. I can't remember. Oh, geez.
He's a great person to have on.
I think I did have him on Zoom in the COVID years, but I feel like we have to start to wrap. Oh, no, we don't have some time. Tell them about Lady Journey, by the way, because we've referenced Lady Journey.
I would love it if you guys would listen to Lady Journey. It's my podcast with Sarah Talamash, who happens to be the wife of Joe.
Yes.
We're doing a kind of a podcast swinging of sorts right now. We talk about lifestyle, mental well-being. We also go on weird tangents and talk about, times that Sarah was a stripper, or, okay, moving on. And it's just a fun time. It's me and Sarah. We goof and we riff and we have fun people on. So
yeah, get on there. And please, for the love of my son, join their Patreon, for God's sake.
Please, yeah. And we've been called funny by several men on Instagram. So if that's not a credit, I don't know what is.
Yeah, there you go. Men on Instagram are not easy to please. They
are not shy.
They're happy to tell you how they feel. And did you see the one I got the other day? Some guy told me my baby's gonna kill himself because I'm such a piece of shit.
Oh,
yeah. Send me a nice message. It was really something.
That is so wildly fucked up.
It's amazing. You see these people, and there's a time I don't even get mad. I'm like, I really hope. And sometimes I'll write to these people, and I'm like, I hope that you get help. Like I feel bad that your life is this. You are like a literal pathetic piece of shit, and I feel for you.
You're not okay. You're absolutely not okay.
You're unwell, and I think it upsets people that I'm just winning.
Yes,
and I have glasses and bad teeth. I think that upsets people. I think it really makes them unhappy.
Absolutely, it does. It does. I think that life is really hard, and there's writing terrible comments on Instagram is some people's only way of communicating with anybody. I think these people are really living.
I think, they think they like troll because they want to have an interaction.
I have compassion for it, but that's another reason that I have to be really careful about looking on Instagram. I almost never read any comments anymore unless I'm in the right space that I can like respond with something funny or like not take it seriously. Cause it's like, I have self-esteem issues. Anything bad that somebody says about mine, I'm like, I thought I knew it. I fucking knew it.
Well, it's that confirmation bias, and it's the old thing too. It's like whisper. Shout a compliment into my ear, I don't hear it. Whisper an insult from across the room, and I hear it.
I'm on a new self-help book right now called The Happiness Trap. And it's all about how our brains evolved to perceive threats, and modern self-help culture kind of promotes this idea that you can always be happy and everything can always go your way. Right. And it's like actually fundamentally flawed. And it's about kind of knowing the difference, which I have a hard time of doing this too, of like knowing the difference when you're creating problems in your own mind versus like there are things that you can and should be upset about. And there's times that it's okay to have emotion.
Right.
So hopefully it will fix everything.
Yeah, well, so much of life is expectations and setting up. What's that other word that's not expectations, but
disappointments, disillusionment.
Yeah, those things. Disillusionment was our lot. Is a quote from but anyways, it's like that feeling of like my life should look like this or it should look like that, but really your life just is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what it's supposed to be. And you have to accept the things you cannot change.
And if you actually look at your life and you truly examine it, it's like, oh my God, we are so lucky. We're living the life of kings. 100 years ago, we'd be dead. I certainly would in childbirth. I mean, like, how cool is it that we get to like be in the world in this highly technological age?
Yeah, no, it's
like wild.
If you're listening to this podcast, you are an extremely privileged person in comparison to most people that have ever lived. Yes.
I saw an article.
You have AirPods in probably.
Yeah. I saw an article that was talking about, it was somebody like one of the Vanderbilts or something. I can't, maybe Cornelius Vanderbilt or something. And he was so wealthy. He was the wealthiest person in the world. And it was going through all the things that he never had access to. It was like sunscreen.
Come on in. Hey, Marcus.
Hello.
Well, that's all right. We're wrapping up. This is good. Come on in. Grab a seat. We got 30 seconds left. We got a Cornelius Vanderbilt story.
Talk about our trauma.
Pop in. It'll get a lot of views. Wait, don't lose that thought. Cornelius Vanderbilt.
Yeah, keep going.
Well, that was it pretty much. He just had access to a ton of stuff that like we have access as poor people. I mean, like we have nothing. Like he was the richest man in the world. He didn't have sunscreen. He didn't have sunglasses.
Right.
You know,
he certainly didn't have an iPhone. Well, that's an interesting thing. Sam Harris, I think, was just talking about that. It's like no matter how the wealthiest person in the world, there's a cap of what you can have. Like Elon Musk has the same iPhone that we have. There is no better iPhone for him to have. Like we have the greatest phone on the planet in our hand. And also just he also, another thing he's fond of saying is like there are at least 2 billion people on Earth at any time that if they switch places with you, that would consider all of their prayers have been answered.
Wow.
Yeah. You have to keep it in perspective. How instead of being like, I'm not Kim Kardashian, it's like, well, you're also not, you know, in Africa.
Yeah. Whoa.
Being, well, I was going to say like being kidnapped as a schoolgirl.
Yeah,
Let me finish.
Exactly. Or shitting in a hole or whatever it is.
You ever heard that old saying? If everyone threw all their problems in a hole, you'd pull yours out first.
Ah, I like that.
Pretty good.
I never heard that.
I love that.
Well, especially right now, we're currently at a comedy festival called Skankfest where we're getting paid to do this. But this is the hardest thing I've done today.
This is work.
Yes.
This is the job, and this is the show. We're not changing.
We're like I went to an open mic one time, and there was an old guy there, weirdly performing, but he was like, everyone here is like, you're like the queens and kings of Brooklyn, just living your little lives. We're running around like, oh, my set.
Right.
It's like, oh, so charmed.
And with all of this, I think about killing myself most of every day.
It's inevitable.
I'm like, I can do this.
Well, I mean, you're going to think about it.
Yeah, I think about everything.
It's fun to think about. Well, I find it quite comforting to think about. Where I could kill myself.
You could just go out at any moment.
Yeah, and just be like, well, I don't want to do that. So let me just find a bathroom and urinate.
It's like an ejector chute. It's nice to know it's there.
Yes, exactly. It'd be funny if we just slowly morphed into Tuesday. Like I just slowly left you and I was like, would you eat your own jizz?
Yeah,
I'm just over here laughing.
All right, Katie, tell them where to find. I know we talked about Lady Journey, but tell them where they can see you and all that.
Please listen and find Lady Journey podcast. We're on all the platforms. We are on everything. We would love you to listen to us and come on the journey.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's a similar show, and at social media.
It's like
Instagram.
Tuesdays with Stories, but it's different. It's completely different.
I meant similar to Mindful Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's similar to Tuesdays at all.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, there's two people.
There's two
It's
people,
fun
and you're
in that
funny.
way. Yes.
And you're talking.
And we're women.
Yeah.
So that's the main difference.
I can't imagine we touch a lot of the same ground.
No.
We're talking about eating shit and all that stuff.
We actually did talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Just because in the there's like a thing in the Middle East where there's like high-end sex workers and they get paid like millions of dollars, but they have to do heinous stuff. So that's a lady journey. That's a lady journey.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. I don't know which camera is mine. Thank you for listening, and keep tuning in. I'm going to start a Patreon at some point. Follow Katie Hannigan. Go see the Lady Journey. Katie, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks for coming in.